The Cincinnati Bengals. What a draft for the Bengals. What a draft night for us watching the Bengals draft, though, because you, Aaron, presented quite possibly the best sign of the evening, chirping at Eli Apple. Bengals fans said they didn't need a cornerback. They said it. And it turned out they did. They needed three cornerbacks to be exact. Starting off with Daxton Hill, headlined, I should say, by Daxton Hill, and the rest of the draft that they had was not that bad. Daxton Hill in the first, Cam Taylor-Britt after that, Zach Carter after that. I mean, the Bengals didn't have a bad draft. Aaron, you have been the most critical of at least the Bengals secondary and Bengals fans. So what were your thoughts on the Bengals draft this year?
Well, look, I know I always give the Bengals fans a hard time, but honestly, I thought they did well. I wasn't a fan of the Daxton Hill pick, not because I don't think he could be a good player in the NFL, but I thought it was a little early for a guy that's his size. But hearing everything out of Cincinnati and how they want to use him, he should fit into that scheme. You see what they did. They went and got a bunch of hybrid kind of players, similar to what Daxton Hill is, 6 foot 191. He's versatile. Ability to play multiple positions is, I think, what you're going to notice here from Cincinnati. Being able to put guys all over the field and not let an offense kind of figure out where these guys are going to be. Daxton Hill is an aggressive player. I just worry about his size. But overall, I thought that the Bengals did a nice job of dressing positions of need. We talked about in the draft, do you go positions of need? Do you go best players available? To me, the Bengals in this entire draft, all 6 of their picks, I believe they had, they went positions of need, either D-line, offensive line, or defensive back. And that started out with Daxton Hill and Cam Taylor-Britt in the first 2 rounds. I thought both picks were really good.
Yeah, I love that. I love the Cam Taylor-Britt pick in the second round. I think he's got that speed, and you mentioned it. These guys are just going to be able to play all over the place for the Bengals defense that really needed that help in the secondary, whether we joke around about it or not. They needed it, and they got it to help them compete in the AFC, an AFC where there's quite a lot of wide receivers. AJ, what was the best pick for the Bengals throughout this draft?
I mean, I'm going to go against Aaron. I mean, I know he didn't say he hated the pick. He said he liked it, but I love the Daxton Hill pick. He was somebody I had going to AFC West and the Chiefs, but I really love this spot. I think the Cincinnati Bengals going to be very happy with this guy. You mentioned his size, and I think he knows it because the way he plays is without fear. He is always coming in hot as a tackler, and I expect the Bengals to kind of use him as a guy to kind of give them a little extra rush from the places you don't really expect it. So having him at that slot corner and bringing him as a blitz, he's got great acceleration. As you can see, he can come from the second level, and he's in the backfield in a blur, and I love that about this guy. So having him as one of those floater-style cornerbacks, one of those floater DBs who can play on the left, who can play on the right, who can drop into coverage, but is always ready to run downhill at a blazing fast speed. And we talked about last season what the Bengals did well. A lot of their playoff wins came from very opportunistic stops on the defensive side of the ball. Having guys like him, having guys like Cam Taylor-Britt, those hybrid-type players allows 2 things. Either one, they don't have to rely on those opportunistic picks because they have players all over the field who can make plays. Or number 2, they can get more of those opportunistic plays because they have players all over the field who can make those type of plays. So I really enjoy the Daxton Hill pick for them. I think that's going to help their defense settle in going into next season and pick up right where they left off.
So let's look at these grades here. And we've talked about this before. We talked about it on yesterday's show. If you missed it, please head on over to YouTube right now or stay on YouTube right now. And after this video, go check out our AFC West coverage of the draft. We're breaking this down by GPA. We're not breaking it down by grades. We're going deeper on this. We're going through every pick. We're making sure that not everybody has that same type of grade. We're trying to make sure we do this right and do this different than what other people are giving you. So we broke it down by GPA. Aaron, you've done the math here. You're the math guy on the show. You've broken down the grades, the values of everything. Let's take a look at your GPA and kind of take us through why you went this route for the Bengals.
Yeah, 2.75. Look, most people are going to say, what, you gave him under a 3.0? I know that's the measuring stick of grade point averages. But you talked about breaking down every pick, and this is what we did here when we kind of came up with this cumulative number. It's not just the first round guys. It goes all the way to the 7th round guys, on a scale. So I looked at guys late in the draft, like a Tyson Anderson, who I think is a huge addition to a team like the Bengals, who's a versatile player. I graded him a little bit higher. And then you get some defensive linemen, some offensive linemen that didn't grade so high. They're late round picks, understandable, but maybe there was some more impact players there or better available players there that they could have gotten, even if they weren't positions of need. So this really boiled down to two things. Did Cincinnati go with positions of need? They did. I think they're an above average draft. We look at C as being an average grade, 2.0. I think they were above average. I think they got some nice quality players at the front end of the draft. Could have did some better, in my opinion, player evaluating late in the draft. I did think some better players slipped from their fingers and they drafted, outside of that. But overall, I thought this was a quality draft for a team that only had 5 picks, right? We're not talking about a team that had a ton of picks, ton of draft capital. I thought they did pretty well addressing their needs. The one question I have for you guys before you get into yours, Daxton Hill, Cam Taylor-Britt, Tyson Anderson, 3 defensive backs, all played safety in college. Is there a chance that Jesse Bates does not get an extension and they let him walk? And I know Dylan's not here to talk about it, but I was interested that they took 3 players that can play safety, right? You got a Von Bell, you got a Jesse Bates there. Maybe they don't want to pay that big contract to a Jesse Bates and they allow him to walk out the door.
I think it's possible, with him being franchised, anything can happen. I mean, if he plays lights out again this season, as we all expect he will, a contract is coming his way, whether it be with the Bengals or somebody else. So I think in their eyes, it does 2 things for them to go and get these DBs who are so versatile. One, if he does walk out the door, maybe one of these guys put on the necessary weight and showed the talents and the mentality to play that safety role if he goes. Or number 2, you're in the AFC. And what we have seen with these wide receivers now, with these quarterbacks, there is a lot of offensive firepower in the AFC. So honestly, you can't ever, in my opinion now, have too many DBs or quarterbacks or safeties. You can't have too loaded of a secondary, in my opinion, with the talent that is in the AFC now. So I think they're covered, whether it becomes from depth or if Jesse Bates does leave and some of these other 2 guys can move to the slot or the nickel while one of those guys move back to safety.
I'm on that side. I really want to go into with you, though, AJ, is you, out of everyone here, I gave the Zach Carter pick a B-. Aaron, you gave it a C. You gave it a B. You were the highest out of everyone on the Zach Carter pick. Was that, because your GPA here, you've got there it is, a 3.25. You're the highest out of everybody on the Bengals here. Why did the Bengals have that good of a draft?
So for me, the Zach Carter, this was a very focused draft. And, it's not very often that you can come into a draft and really just do what you deem is necessary. A lot of the times you are put in a position where if you don't go best available, you're just hurting yourself. And if you look at what these guys in the Bengals now have on the offensive side of the ball, maybe you could argue they could have got another receiver or something just to help. We know they have a 3-headed monster, but injuries happen. The depth to me and the receiver isn't there. But looking at the fact that they went with their needs, I think the 3 defensive backs they got were all great. Adding to that defensive line to help out Trey Hendrickson is a good thing for me. I just like what they did where they focused on their draft. So I gave them a little bit of a higher grade on that. Now, Zach Carter has some development to do, but he comes from good stock, SEC, Florida defensive school. At that point in time, not so good at defense this season as if they were in the past 3, but he was of that old school that had that defensive talent. So I believe he'll develop well and can help on the defensive line.
I like that a lot. That's kind of how I judged when grading these picks for the Bengals. It was all the needs were taken care of. We talked on this show all the time about how that secondary needed to be improved. That's why I went with 3.0 and graded it the way it is, because they did address all the needs. They needed to address that D line. They continued to draft offensive line. They didn't let that one slip, even though they went heavy on offensive line throughout free agency. They still built that offensive line in the draft, making they picked Cordell Volson out of North Dakota State. Obviously not a polished prospect by any means and has a lot of development, but a pick that addressed a much needed need for the Cincinnati Bengals. I like what they did here.